Hey everyone, welcome to the Search Engine Journal show. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Channelable and Wix. I am your humble editor-in-chief, Amanda ZW, filling in for Lauren Baker for this episode with the unparalleled Brian Kearney. Thank you so much for being here, Brian.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, nice to be on. This is my first podcast, so
Oh,
I'm excited to
wow.
be here. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be gentle, or we'll try anyway. Did I pronounce your last name correctly? Is it Kearney?
Yes, you got it right. Yes.
Okay, awesome. I mean, we had ample time to figure that out before we started recording. Alas, here we are. Well, awesome. I will just tell the folks watching a little bit about you, Brian. You are a Boston-based influencer and creator. Pretty active on Instagram and TikTok. And I don't want to speak for you, but I would say that it is your relatable and observational humor that has helped you grow your following. So again, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I will just kind of start out by, I think, addressing the fact that content creation is just one of many things that you do or have done. You've been in the worlds of healthcare, politics, and now, the influencer world. So can you share a snapshot of what inspired you to do each of those?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, it's so hard to draw like a line that's comprehensible, but I started out actually in nursing. So I was a registered nurse out of college. I got my bachelor's of science in nursing and originally just thought I wanted to be around people, helping them and feeling fulfilled in some profession. And for a lack of a better term, I just didn't work out for a number of different reasons. And I ended up staying in healthcare for like the better half of like the last 10 years with different hospital systems. I worked at a couple startups, both in the pharmaceutical space and then health insurance. So yeah, I've been like all over the place, trying to figure out where kind of Brian can be placed in the professional world. But yeah, it's been a long road. And then politically, I thought I was going to be like a state rep. A seat opened up in Boston and I thought I wanted to get involved more politically. I've volunteered a bunch in different sort of aspects. I think we touched upon Boston Cares, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then influencing just kind of came out of sort of not boredom, but I think I had this sort of like desire for I'd say a few years, just like mindlessly watching YouTube or Instagram videos, and then finally having that hasn't changed. But yeah, I think finally having the courage to be like, oh, maybe I have a couple ideas, like putting myself out there and being like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna take a run at this. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah. And you've been at it for like a year or a year and change now?
Yeah, I started out, I think I posted my first video probably like early last year, like I'd say February maybe, was like a Super Bowl video I posted. And that was my first like real one. So yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy how it's all kind of transpired. But
yeah. So for the moment, it almost sounds like you've kind of gotten to a point where you're settling into content creation. And so what has made you stick with it?
Yeah, so like totally unintentionally. I don't think I ever anticipated it getting to this point. And so yeah, it's very new territory. I think I don't know. So like the question was
no, just like what has motivated you or inspired you to kind of settle into this third chapter in your life, or maybe it's the 7th or 8th.
Yeah, exactly. Gosh, I think it's more been, I initially was just like a creative outlet. And I think it was like came out of a time where I just like hit a breaking point where I was just like, I need to do this. It was more like, I can't explain it, but it just became like, this is something that I want to do. I need to do. And even to this day, like I just find myself being like, I feel the need to create. So it's been sort of this like innate, unexplainable desire that I think I've been looking for a while, and it's been nice to sort of have that. So maybe I shouldn't question it, but yeah, I think, and and also things have changed where now where I'm like, I'm getting paid by, there's certain brand deals. I think there's incentive with like the dopamine hit when something goes viral. So it's like other
Mhm.
things that have happened since I've started creating that have helped, I think, me
Yeah.
pursue it more too. There's something here, clearly, I think so.
Yeah.
That
That
helps.
is a dopamine hit. Like, again,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna claim to be a neuroscientist, but when I was in business school, I remember our economics professor was saying something about how when you win money, it sets off the same part of your brain that is activated if
Yeah.
you do cocaine or something. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, fun fact. Well, I definitely wanna get into the career, sort of like compulsion to do what you love. I have some questions for you about that for
Yeah.
sure. But a lot of the folks watching are search engine optimization, SEO pros, or digital marketing folks. So
Mhm.
creating content and optimizing it is something that hopefully they want to do because it's part of their jobs, but they kind of have to do it. And so, given your success, and it's been pretty quickly,
Yeah.
how fast you've grown a following, but what advice can you give that audience about tapping into new platforms, emerging trends?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I feel like there's a part of me that's like the imposter syndrome in me is like, who am I? People have been doing this for years, but yeah, I think at least for Instagram, like I definitely haven't had as much success on TikTok. And I think even before I say anything else, like I feel like a lot of it has been luck to some extent. Like I think there's a lot of like other great creators out there that are doing very similar things. And there's a part of me that's like I can't even understand why things are taking off that I'm doing. But I think gosh, there's a few things that I like think about that I think have been important to me for my like or that have led to the success that I've had in comparison to maybe some other folks. Cause like just as simple as like aligning my iPhone, like I shoot everything on my iPhone. And I think I realized that like, and I don't know if any of this matters, but this is like my sort of
Does.
understanding of things.
Yeah.
So like the first thing I would like say is like just make sure your iPhone camera settings are like aligned or suitable for each platform. And I think there's different settings or like I think one of my friends was shooting in 4K, and I know that Instagram cannot like produce or there's some sort of compression involved. So like it's best to shoot in like 1080 30 or 1080 60. So there's like certain settings within the iPhone. And then within the platform, I feel like there's just certain things that um again, like there was a friend that like didn't have one setting where it's like uploading at the highest quality. There's like a setting before you post on Instagram that's like upload at the highest quality. Um and I've spoken to someone at Meta about just like best practices for posting and like, don't flood your videos with 30 hashtags, even though that's like the maximum allowed. Like it's better to, I think she actually recommended using 8 hashtags. Um, and then, yeah, tailoring those to the video, obviously. But, and then, yeah, like the other thing that I thought was interesting was, and that I've trying to do with my content at least is like posting consistently. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to post every day. It's just, think of like your favorite TV show growing up. Like this is a bad example, but like The Office was always on at Thursday at 9 o'clock.
Hmm.
So like your audience gets to know that that's your posting schedule as opposed to like posting randomly, which I thought was interesting too. Um, but yeah, I think those are some things off the top of my head that I think have
Yeah.
worked. But
That we should have just made this a master class about how to
yeah,
optimize for Instagram,
yeah,
really.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the hashtag part of it is, it's funny because it sounds like common sense, but if I can put my like SEO nerd hat on for a second, there used to be, well, I think some people still do it, a phenomenon called keyword stuffing, which basically was just like stuff your content with keywords that you want
yeah,
people to discover your page for. And I mean, that's just so out of date. Like, it needs a new word for out of date. It's just such an old practice. So what you're saying about, choosing your battles with the hashtags is really interesting. How do you do that? Like, how have you sort of mastered that?
As you were talking, I was just thinking, I'm like also jealous. I'm like thinking of people that don't even use hashtags and their videos go viral. And I'm like, is there? But yeah, I try to like you said, like sort of categorize it in like 2 or 3 ways. Like if I have a video about like, yeah, corporate America or something in the 9 to 5 world, like I'll do a few hashtags, like 2 or 3 that are related to like, yeah, corporate or like meetings or and then like the rest are like either some sort of like and it's like as I'm saying this, I'm like, oh, I hate this, is like cringy, but like comedy or funny videos. So like I try to like be like, it's tell the app that like, yeah, it's corporate, like funny. But
yeah,
it's like simple.
I mean, our world is, I think that's part of our mission state. Actually, I should know this. I shouldn't admit that as editor in chief. I'm like, I think, but our mission statement touches on how like the world is ruled by algorithms. And, it's just, people don't always traditionally think of something like Instagram or TikTok as a search engine, but they are. And so you have to send that signal to the algorithm about like, this is what my content's about, folks.
Right. And I think like on that note, like the other thing that I think, and I'm like neurotic about it, but like, I don't think other people maybe do it, but like a lot of people repost videos from TikTok onto Instagram and, remove that watermark first. But I think a lot of people don't also add in, like if I do a video where it's like generations going to work on TikTok, I don't just like copy paste it onto Instagram. Like I'll make sure I'm writing the text within the Instagram app. So it's like registering.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, little things like that. And even if I like in the caption, I'll like typically try to like replicate some sort of version of like generations going to work so that the SEO is picked up too. But again, yeah.
But that was a good one. That was part of our research going into this episode. But so you post different videos sometimes on TikTok and Instagram. So what makes you decide which ones to post where?
So interesting. And I don't think this is a good strategy, but I think I found like, and this goes maybe back to like my initial hesitancy to posting in the first place. But I think for me, TikTok is like almost like a playground. Like I see it more of, I guess I see more of like Instagram as like, let me back up. If I post a video on TikTok and it does well, like I'm very more inclined to post it on Instagram. But if a video does bad on TikTok, I'm like, no one's going to see it. I'm not going to post it to Instagram. So I feel like that's probably partly why my TikTok growth hasn't been as good as Instagram. But I feel like TikTok, it just feels like you can do whatever and it can go viral. So I think there's like a part of me that's like, and I think for me creatively, it helps to know that I can maybe just tease out different ideas on that app. And then instead of feeling like I always have to be on, like every video has to be a good one on Instagram or, but I bet I feel like a lot of people don't do that, but yeah, that's just.
Well, it's you're working with a small team, or limited resources. Like I'm going into like, if you're a brand or a startup or something like that, it's just, you have to start somewhere, maybe there's a strategy behind it. And you've actually talked a lot about sort of the tactical side and the strategic side of what you do. And I like the idea of being able to have a sort of lower risk playground for experimenting with that content. I think that's really interesting. And, you mentioned about like, where maybe your following has grown faster in one platform over the other one. But so my understanding is that a lot of what has caused that explosive growth is just the fact that your content is often so relatable. And I think you may have used the word observational at one point. But the thing is, like, my Discover page, my Discover feed is like all observational and related content. You've managed to stand out somehow. So how do you keep it fresh and just consistently resonate?
It's hard. I think, it's been difficult because there's definitely times where, yeah, it's I don't know. I think what's helped me and what someone has told me, I think that's helped me is like whenever I've felt stuck or whenever I feel like maybe the need to post and I don't have anything, like getting out in the world is like really helpful. Like not trying to force it and just like living my life, and then naturally just like things happen. Like if you're just out and about or in different places, like I'm trying to think of like recently, but yeah, like one of my like one of my most viral videos on Instagram is like literally just my friend who's like neurotic, and I am too, but like locking my car to the point where it's like locking my car like multiple times. And that was literally my friend, and I'm guilty of it too, but like little things like that are like, and it's so weird too, because when I'm posting those videos that have hit so hard where I'm like, oh my God, I didn't think it would hit.
Yeah.
I think there's a part of me that's like, yeah, this is me being vulnerable. Like this is how I actually am. Or like I did one on therapy. Like I've gone to therapy for a number of years now, and I remember like literally every therapy session I go to, I'm like, I'm feeling pretty good. Like I feel like I've got things, not all the time, but lately I feel like I've got things under control. And like really the end of the session, it's like my world is like flipped upside down and I'm like crying. And like, so I did a video on that, and it's just like the first 5 minutes of therapy, the last 5 minutes of therapy. Yeah. So I think it's just been like staying tuned in to what's true to me. And then, yeah, like being open to being vulnerable, I guess, instead of like what's going to hit or what's going to go viral, and just being like, this is funny to me. And this is like true of like my friends, maybe. Yeah. I think, and like, it's not like I'm willy-nilly like posting videos and being like, oh, this is relatable. Like I do, there's a lot of behind the scenes, like my cousin, I have a couple friends that have been like very, very helpful. Like I'll send them videos before I post being like, am I crazy? Or is this funny, actually funny? So I've had a good like buffer system before posting that I'd be so curious if other people do, but yeah, I'm very like, and also like, I know this isn't related to your question, but I feel like initially when I started out, I was very much like, I don't want to inundate people with videos. Like I really want to make sure, and on Instagram, I guess I'm talking more about, but I really want to make sure when people see my feed or that if they see a video come up, like it's a good one. Like, so my goal was just to post one a week, and like max 3 a week, and just really kind of like consolidate and make them good. But yeah,
we call that multiple layers of review over.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool.
We have to have several sets of eyes on things before they go out. So you have your own version of that. I think that's great.
Which is so funny, because like as I'm saying that, like there's been videos that I've sent to my cousin or my friends and they didn't think it was funny, and then they blew up. So yeah, it's difficult navigating that too, like trusting yourself versus your little inner circle. But
yeah. Maybe they're just too used to you and your humor, or they're sick of you. I don't know.
That too.
No, I'm kidding. I wanted to ask you about that, to that end. You've stated that having like, the stereotypical day job gave you structure for content creation. And so now it sounds like that you found other approaches to that. So, I mean, what has that transition been like? Because I'm sure there are people watching who have, because of the economy or because of burnout, like God knows what kind of reasons, they have gone from that kind of traditional full-time employment to striking out on their own or not really knowing what to do next. So what has that been like?
Yeah, I think, I know I said that with the Boston Business Journal, and like after it was posted, I was like, wait, I kind of like, do I really believe that?
Would you like to retract that statement?
Yeah, no, like it's like both sides are true. Like I think having a structure, like a steady income, there was like some sense of like, I guess like mental freedom, being like, I don't have to worry about X, Y, and Z. And so I think I knew, like, I'm working not Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So I have to film like either on the weekends or at night. And so I think that, like, maybe that's what I was trying to get at. But I think there's like a certain stress that comes with, since I've been laid off, like, paying for health insurance out of pocket, or, I was paying for Cobra for a bit. And then, like, yeah, just like a side income for now until I figure things out. But yeah, I think it's been easier though without a job, maybe, in the sense that, like, there's just a lot more freedom to sort of like do as I please when I please it. So if I feel inspired, I can kind of just do it on the spot, which has been nice. But I think, yeah, there's also like a sense of, oh my God, there's so much time. Like, I feel like I need to, because of that, I have to produce quality content, which, like, isn't always the case. So yeah, it's like a double-edged sword, which has been difficult. But yeah, like, to that point, like, I think I have like crazy grown since I've gotten laid off. So there's probably something to be said about that too. So
Yeah. I was gonna, wait until later to ask you this question, but I think you said and not to bring up age, but you said you're 33.
yes.
Okay, so I think one could make the argument that you've done quite a bit in 33 years, and I would really be curious to know what kind of advice you'd give to somebody who either wants to, or who has been given no other choice but to redefine or kind of diversify their career path.
Yeah, like someone who's like trying to get into content creation, or just like in general.
Yeah, or is just, you mentioned that you felt like you almost had this drive to create something. And, there are some people who might have the same drive, or it's something they've been curious about, or maybe they also find themselves newly laid off, and they now have the time to pursue that curiosity.
Yeah, I think it's it's like, I mean, my advice is like, yeah, if you have that sort of like drive, or even just the curiosity, like, I think just doing it has been the most important thing. Like, I think I'm so guilty of just like analysis paralysis, like getting in my head and not even taking action. So I think the biggest thing is just like to do it. And I think, if you look back at like my first few videos, they're like horrible, but like, I think literally just doing it has helped me just be like, okay, like, I've ripped the Band-Aid off, and like, this is me, like, showing like the little circle that I had of my friends and, whatever, coworkers that were like following me at the time.
Mhm.
I think that alone helped. And then, like, I try to explain it to people that are interested, like, it just becomes who you are. Like, after you do it, if it's just like people accept that, like, that's what Brian does, or like, so it's not, I don't know. It's, yeah, but I think, and I think for me, like, when I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, there was totally a fear of posting and being vulnerable. And I always think back to like the times when I was afraid of something, and like overcoming that fear, like, it's always been helpful. Like, whether or not I continued with it, like, even if I didn't pursue this, I think I would have been proud of myself regardless for posting and just being like, this is like, I did it. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just doing it, and then you'll figure it out along the way. And like, regardless, you'll figure out if you like it or not, if you, yeah.
It's almost like an A/B test of
exactly. Yeah.
career. Yeah. So I am going to shift gears a little bit, because you had talked about like, oh, now I get that dopamine hit because I have paid deals. So leaning into those brand collaborations a little bit. When we first talked about you being on the podcast, you had talked about how important it was to you that you kind of remained yourself. You remained Brian, despite doing sort of sponsored content or promotional content.
Yes.
So how do you've used this pretty authentic voice to grow your audience, I would say. How do you maintain that while also kind of achieving whatever objectives the brand has by partnering with you?
It's all about the money. No.
Follow the money.
No, I think, yeah, like literally last night I was just responding to a brand, And you know, I kind of like nicely rejected them, and they asked like, you know, why. And I've had to do that a number of times, and I think it's been difficult, one, to say no, but also just be selective with who I'm choosing, because I think at the end of the day, I don't, like I said in the beginning, like I don't want to inundate folks that follow me with like, he's just a walking like billboard, like that's like the last thing I want to be. So I think a lot of it has come down to, I think money, like I joke about money, but money has been a factor. But I also think it's been important for me to feel like I can be creative. So like having that, knowing that I have the freedom, creatively from like the brand to kind of do what I want with, like having that trust, I think has been very helpful, as opposed to being like, this is exactly what we want. Like this is the shot and I'm just kind of a puppet. Or if it feels like more like traditional media where it's like, it feels like a commercial. Like I think that's just, at this point, I'm much more selective in regards to like that. But also I think just as like a whole, like brands that I'm selecting, like I think I'm like, this is gonna sound horrible, but I think I'd rather be associated with like a McDonald's or like a Duluth Trading Company. Like I think there's a part of me that like does care about the prestige of the brand too. Or I take that back too, or if I believe in the product, like regardless of it, or if I like can get behind it, then I'll also take that into consideration. But but yeah, those are some of the big ones, I would say.
How much creative freedom do you get when you say yes to partnering with a brand?
Yeah, it's been like a lot of, I would say, trial and error. Like I think at this point I'm much more like upfront about those questions, whereas in the beginning I was like, I just didn't know what to ask. So I think now it's probably more the norm, but I think for the most part, actually, it's been surprising and like very, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's just been nice to feel trusted in that I'm going to make a video that's like putting the brand in a good light, but it's also like my spin on it. So I'd say like a 75% of the time, there's only been a handful of brand videos that I've done that have felt much more like directed, as opposed to like me just being like, I'm just going to do what I want. So that's been, interesting.
Okay. So I'm going to trip you. I hope I don't trip you up here, but I'm going to lean into that a little bit. So you say yes to a brand, you like the prestige, you like the mission or the product, and you have whatever creative license you're comfortable with. What does the creative process then look like for creating that content versus something that's not sponsored? Loaded question, I know, but I got to ask.
I'm trying to think of like a recent example, but so I recently did a video for Duluth Trading Company, and it was like a fall campaign. So it was like primarily focused on like the flannels and like doing fall activities, and so that was like the vibe they were going for, and they were like, have at it, kind of, as long as you like showcase the product in a good light, all that stuff, like no alcohol, no profanity, but as long as they provide like a sense of, or just like a general like idea, I think like for that one, I don't know why, or just how it came to me, but like all I could think about was the girlfriend that is like slyly trying to get their boyfriend to do fall activities, and like, and so like my cousin and I were just riffing about, and the tough part with this one actually was like the fact that Duluth, one of their few requirements was that they wanted Duluth Trading Company mentioned within the first 10 seconds. So, part of that was just like, okay, like how do we work that in? And we came up with the fact that like, all of us like order Amazon boxes or just like order online nowadays anyway. So it was like the girlfriend, who's just my friend, like coming in or like me picking up a package. I mean, like, did you order a package from Duluth Trading Company? And she's like, no. And like, kind of like looks back at the camera. And then it just became this game of like me becoming more like, I kind of feel like going, apple picking. And she's like, oh, really? And I think what's helped too, like on this, like, for the last several years, I can't talk right now, several years, I've been doing like improv. And I think that's helped too with like how to heighten an idea and how to like heighten a video. So it continue, like each beat is like a little bit funnier or like a little bit more ridiculous. So I think that's helped too. But yeah, I think the creative process has been like, it's so new to me too. Like, I think it's just like blue skying the general idea they're going for.
Yeah.
And then like working in, and like part of it too, I think I also do a lot of research on like TikTok or Instagram with like regards to what's been done already and like trying not to replicate it so it's unique, or just to like get inspiration for like, okay, this is what other people have done. Like I could create my own spin off of that kind of.
Yeah. It's almost like doing a SWOT analysis for yourself: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Yeah.
To the Brian Kearney brand. I love that you mentioned improv. And this is like completely like, it's kind of going back to the whole like career, workplace, professional calling stuff. So not about me, but I did improv in college.
Oh, get out.
Yeah. That back in 1927. And so I've always thought that, having even just like a little bit of experience, even just like with an improv workshop, it just pays off so much at work and in high pressure situations. So you've been, like, I've never worked in healthcare, but from what I've heard about friends who do, like, that's a pretty high pressure situation. Working in a startup environment, a pretty high pressure situation. So how has that life experience kind of translated into the paid work that you've done?
I think and maybe like when we talked about inspiration, like I think a lot, at least my corporate videos, a lot of it has literally been like my gripes with corporate America. Like it's literally been, I hated corporate America. I just tried different avenues. I tried different industries, and that's initially why I went into nursing. But Sorry. No, you're good. I think it's helped me in the sense of like having this. I'm trying to like find the word, but I was gonna say too, like especially since I've been laid off, like I think I've had a lot more freedom to post, not like in an offensive way, but like the freedom to post corporate stuff that isn't gonna jeopardize my job. I think it allowed me to grow a lot more because people can relate to like being in a job or feeling stuck. And I think a lot of that like resonated with people. So I think like one part that has lended it, like all my professional experience just from like the sole fact that I like hated it. So I think finding like humor in the pain has been a big benefactor. But I also too, like at 33, like not that, I have a good deal of experience. So I think that in and of itself helped to like just being in a startup or being a nurse. Like I think being around different sets of people and like having, instead of being in one job where you're just seeing the same people or, even just people cycle in and out, I think being in different, in like being in California, just being around different people has like lended itself for different characters or different ideas for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you could say that, okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but some of your content is kind of you making fun of yourself, like the car locking thing, I think is a good
yeah.
So is that, I feel like, we don't talk, because I feel like I've been to so many marketing conferences and God knows what over the years. And I feel like there isn't nearly enough education about how to correctly use humor, especially self-deprecating humor in your content as a brand. So, okay, do you want to do a little, like a tiny bit of improv right now?
Brian? Yeah, sure.
All right, so let's say the Search Engine Journal approaches you about a content collaboration.
Yeah.
And is like, we want to do some self-deprecating humor. We'd love for you to be like our one-time brand ambassador. What kind of ideas do you have?
Like immediately I would I mean, I don't know how I don't know how I would spin it, but like when I hear podcasts, I'm like, oh my God, like aspirationally I want to listen to podcasts, but I just feel so overwhelmed with like how many there are. And I'm just like immediately would just think of like, yeah, something to do with like there doesn't need to be any more podcasts. Like we don't need like I think I saw someone do this video and I was like, that is so true. Like it's just like what like, and I'm sure there's a ton of good ones out there, but yeah, I think that's like that'd be a funny one. Trying to think like even like I always revert back to like generations. Like I think for some reason that like you hit every target market, it kind of makes you want to watch the whole video. Like maybe like interviewing different generations on a podcast, types of people you see on a podcast. There's probably some more clever ones, but those.
So do you mean to tell me you haven't actually read the Search Engine Journal then?
I did. And when you reached out, I was like, okay, I am familiar with this, but I also like, it's like, I feel like it's like talking to my brother. I'm like, I still really don't know what he does. Like, it's kind of like, I know he's in finance, but I'm trying to think what else.
That's, we're talking kind of jumping back and forth between topics, but keep coming back to the whole like career and professional path thing. And I think it's so interesting that people, especially, well, maybe not so much today, but people, it's just human nature. I feel like we've evolved to a point where you invest so much of your self-worth into like what you do for work. And if you ask, I don't know what it is in your case, but like I have found that if I ask some of the people in my life who I care about the most or whose opinion I value the most, and I try to get them to describe what I do, they're like, I do words thing.
Yeah.
The Google. And so, yeah, that's when you said that about you don't understand what your brother does. Like that's
so real. Yeah. It's like, so, and I think the other thing, like, I know it just, when you said I forget if you said you were at a convention recently or a conference.
I was at PubCon.
And all like about like what deprecating humor, like the one thing that has been, it just made me think of it, so I'm going to say it, but and this isn't like a driving force, but something I always think about before I post is like, I feel like what hits is like, is this shareable? Like, and at the end of the day, if people, and because sharing is like the most potent factor, so I've heard, for the algorithm, like sharing is the number one way to grow or something. But all that to say is that I feel like when I think about videos and I'm like, the videos that do so well are just like, is it like that, oh my God, that's so my friend, or that's so me. Like, and I feel like that's what drives, unless it's something that's like absolutely crazy, where it's like, how did they do that? Like some like crazy athlete or musician. Or the other part of it is like someone that's just like, this is so relatable. It's like, it reminds me of myself, and I think that's the driving force for sharing.
The I feel seen content.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like,
yeah,
this is so X or whatever. But just made me think of that.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask you about what advice you have for brands who are trying to, because I used to work in social media and it just kind of felt like, I don't know, it was like every week it was like, oh my God, not another trend, not another like to use. And so it's, I was going to ask you about like, well, what's your advice for tapping into trends? But it's just kind of, again, I don't want to speak for you, but it sounds like at the end of the day, whatever the feature, whatever the trend, it kind of comes back to being yourself, and whether it's it's an individual or a company.
Totally. Like, and it's funny you say that, because there's been videos that friends have had that I've been like, I actually find that funny, or they've been so, maybe they felt so compelled about it that I was like, okay, maybe I'm not seeing it, but I'm down to try it out. Like, I'm willing to see it through. And I feel like those ones haven't hit as well, but videos that come from like my experience or my world seem to hit more. So yeah, there's definitely like a sense of self in the videos that have done well. But gosh, yeah, and I've done the whole trend thing. I feel like, and it's worked like a handful of times. Like I've tried to follow, there's like one account in particular that like finds the trending audio for the given week. And, you know, I feel like that never has really worked for me as much as I wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there's like such a clever spin on that trending audio. Like I know a couple off the top of my head that I used that were like trending audio or just funny. And I just related it to like West Coast versus East Coast, or like there was like a trending audio for like it was just making fun of or making light of like healthcare in the US. And I was literally waiting for an appointment at my doctor's, and I was like, it just kind of clicked, and I was like, oh my God, I should just film this really quick while I'm in the doctor's office, as opposed to it being a green screen. Like I think there's like an authenticity. Like if it literally looks like I'm in a doctor's office and someone's speaking, it's like I can't even tell if this is real. So I think if you can do the trending audio right, great. But if not, like I'm not one of those people. I've done it a couple times, but I think tapping into like your own unique voice or like using your experience is like probably gonna last longer too, like as opposed to just hopping on trends.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, you know, you had mentioned I keep jumping back and forth, Brian. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, no.
That make me think of other questions I have for you, which is very, very engaging. But I wanted to ask you about we're talking about being authentic to who you are as a brand or as a creator. Yeah. And kind of going back to this idea of like discoverability, being able to stand out. If you are a brand that has a little bit less of the prestige of a McDonald's or a Duluth Trading Company, what is your advice on, standing out when wanting to reach out and work with a creator? How do you make that sell?
That's a good question.
Well, what stands out to you when people reach out to you to collaborate?
I think so. For instance, like I think like freebies are helpful, where it's like there was a brand that reached out and they literally were just like, pick any, it was like a collar shirt. They noticed that I did a lot of corporate videos, and they were just like, hey, like pick out any shirt, we'll send it to you for free. And then all we ask in exchange is just like for you to tag us in a video where you use that shirt. And I was like, I could totally do that. That doesn't feel like I'm like stuffing the audience with like, buy this, or like you use this code. So I think that's been easier for me to accept, where it's like, yeah, like a freebie, I guess, is like the best way.
Yeah. So incentive.
Yeah. And I think someone else reached out recently where I was like, you know what, I would have done that if and it was like a taste test. They wanted me to like get like a iced tea, like a hard iced tea, like a spiked iced tea, and then test it with I don't know, literally any other brand. But they wanted it to be a dedicated reel. And I was like, oh, that would have been interesting to just as like a trend, like as if they were like, we're trying to start a trend, as opposed to being like, can we pay you? I was like, oh, maybe I would have done that if it was more like, I don't know. Or if it was like a freebie, if they like gave me one, I was like, yeah, I would have done that. Mm-hmm. But and I think stories are helpful. Like I'm like way more inclined to like post to my story for a brand, as well.
Interesting. Yeah, because that's so interesting that somebody reached, and I'm not, no shade, but like they reach out to you with the hopes of starting a trend.
Yeah.
And it kind of brings up this whole idea of risk and reward. And I feel like they were asking you to take a pretty big bet, without offering an incentive or a reward. So any thoughts on that?
And, yeah, I think for that one, like even if the money was great, like, or I just like, that's not my style of video. Like I'm not going to do like a taste test. Like I feel like that's more like a lifestyle probably approach, or someone who's like in cuisine's not the right word. I'm trying to think of like someone who's like in the, like, there's like a girl I follow that does like food and like
Food and
cuisine.
beverage.
Yeah, that's like her thing. Whereas I was like, I mean, I like drinking, but like I'm not like a college kid either. So I think I'm trying to think of a better way they could have done it where I would have accepted it. But yeah, like maybe a freebie and then just post to your story, and I probably would have done it. Yeah, I definitely would have done it. I think like having them send a package or like send something to would have been helpful, as opposed to like me going to the store and then trying to figure it out. But
yeah, got it. Okay, we'll send you an SEJ hoodie in the mail when we're done. Actually, I have one. That was like when I first started working here, one of the gifts I got, and it's actually quite comfy. It's maroon. It says "Optimize" across the front. It's one of my favorite.
Ooh, I'm always down for a hoodie.
Perfect. We'll have my people talk to your people about that. Love some swag. Love a swag giveaway.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about shareability, discoverability, shareability, relatability. Is there have you ever experienced or been on the receiving end of the wrong kind of engagement? And what even is that? What is the wrong kind of engagement?
I mean, yeah, a lot. I mean, like wrong engagement as in like the video flopped, or like this is becoming like more of an argument, like it's controversial kind of thing. Both
well, yeah, I mean, like however you would define the wrong kind of engagement, because I feel like that looks different for everybody.
Yeah, there's been a ton of times where like I've posted a video and I was like, there's no doubt this is going viral. And then on the flip side, there's been videos where I was like, I almost didn't post it and it went viral. So I really feel like sometimes I don't have a good handle on what's gonna drive engagement. I think what's worked has been like corporate content in general for me has worked. And then like tapping into like types of people or like generational stuff. I'm trying to think. Yeah, there's just.
Well, let me rephrase, because you brought something up. It was like something about like people arguing in the comments or something. Is that what you said?
Yeah. There's like one video like last year. And it like looking back, like I think it got flagged on both platforms.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which I like
ask what it was.
Yeah. I think what was it? Like so like the whole for the past year it's been like inflation and like the cost, like everything is just getting driven up. And being in Massachusetts, there's like a ton of just turkeys roaming around, like
the wild turkeys of Brookline.
Yeah, they're just, and I feel like they're everywhere now. Like I don't remember growing up and seeing them. And I was with my cousin. We just got breakfast, and there was turkeys crossing the road, and we were just like, like just stupid. And not that we were gonna like actually run them over, but it was just like the music from Jaws, and like just a clip of like the turkey and then me, and then a clip of like a closer look of me and then the turkey, and then me revving the engine. It was just like sound effects in the background, as if like trying to buy a Thanksgiving turkey in 2022. And I think, like
Thanksgiving is right around the corner, so this might be helpful advice to people in Massachusetts.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that we're condoning that. I myself am a vegetarian, so we're not condoning violence against animals here.
So that was a lot of there's some lashback with like that's not funny to even joke about. That was the only video I think I've like touched upon where it hit a nerve with people, but
okay.
Lack of engagement from other videos is literally just from like the video probably just not being a good video, or like the concept was good but it wasn't filmed properly or something.
So that was a really good, sorry to dwell on this, but I mean, like that was a really good example, I feel like, of like, it sounds like the video did get an awful lot of engagement, but
100%.
It wasn't great. It wasn't super positive. So what's the lesson learned from that? Like, what's the advice you would impart after going through that?
I feel like when we were in that video, didn't take long to make because it was literally just like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 shots. But I think when we were editing it, I just remember feeling like Barstool Sports or like Dave Portnoy, where it's like, I feel like he always touches that line where it's like so controversial. And I think that's why it hits, because it's so controversial. So I think, yeah, it's like, if you're willing to like cross a line or like get really close to that line, then like, and you're okay with that. I'm not personally. I think that was the first time where I was like, oh, okay, like this is maybe not the video great. Yeah, it was interesting. Like yeah, it went viral like right away because of everyone had something to say. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I think the lesson learned was probably yeah, like maybe it's best to not ruffle feathers, but I think there's something to be said about being controversial too sometimes, or just having an opinion and like willing to like back it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having to take a stance on things. I mean, I feel like, and you know, I'm going to ask you, you know, like what's next for you in a minute.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. But it's just, you know, I feel like as you become more recognizable as a creator, as a brand, people expect you to have a stance on certain things. And so if and when you get to that point, like, have you thought about that? What are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's like two things that come to mind. So we were just talking about, so there was another thought that came in from your last question that I was thinking about that I purposely do, but it really has no it's so that if I do a generational video in the corporate setting, I purposely leave out Gen X. And I like almost like out of like, and I think initially actually I like literally didn't know Gen X existed. So the first time it happened, I was like, oh my God, like I feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became a joke in the comments, like, oh, that's because Gen X is like crushing it, or they're like, they already started their day. And now it's like tactfully maybe, but I've literally just left Gen X out as a joke for me, because I think it's funny, but also it drives engagement because all the Gen X people are like the forgotten generation, like how, like, and it's just, yeah, it's just been funny.
I'm not going to name names, but somebody who's part of the podcast planning process on our end is a member of Gen X and was like looking at some of your videos and was like, I like how Gen X is conveniently left out, which is where I want to be. And I was like, oh, interesting. Okay, well, good to know. Like if I ever do any generational content.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I got a little laugh when she said that, but I'm sorry, did I interrupt you? Please.
No. That was like the only thing I wanted to like tap into on the last question. But yeah, like that like even right now, like having grown, or even if I was to grow further, like having a platform and maybe like even more of a responsibility to post, but like right now, like I'm feeling pressured to say something about what's going on with the conflict with Palestine and Israel. And yeah, but there's also a part of me that's like, yeah, grappling with that, like because I have a platform, should I be posting about it? But also there's like literally everyone's posting about it right now, and I'm like, do I? Yeah, so that's been tough too.
For what it's worth, if it's like when in situations like that, when you're not really sure what else to say, or you're not really sure if it's your place to say anything, like this happened during with the ongoing crisis following the Maui wildfires.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time, some of the best things that you can do is just like share information that will educate and share information that will help those impacted by it. So, I mean, not that you asked for my advice, and also, and not about us, it's about you. But yeah, I mean, what would, so you would you give any advice on that, or nah?
Yeah, I think I like that approach. I like educating, and I like actually was thinking about doing something where it's like, coming from like a white privileged man, but like, trying to like make sense of it in a way that's like digestible. Like I know there's a lot of content out there about like just where it's just like words, but and there's probably way better content about explaining the conflict. But yeah, I think I like that approach, explaining it as opposed to like maybe I don't know,
offering your opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hate to pivot so sharply,
Yeah.
but I do want to end on, maybe a positive note.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I going back to what I teased earlier, what is next for Brian
Wow.
Kearney, you think?
I don't know. I think I'm trying to take it all in stride and just like but I think like ideally like I don't want to be a full-time content creator, but I think unintentionally um I'd like to have some sort of like ideally I'd be an actor. Like I really want to get into acting, TV or film. I think that would be the goal. And I know content creation is maybe an avenue to get there. So I'll probably keep making videos, keep posting them, and hope something sticks. But in the meantime, like I have an agent in New York, and I'm doing like self-tape auditions from home. So that's the goal, and a long shot, but we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Well, we'll be watching and, wishing you luck. And in the meantime, thank you for sharing what you've learned with us. Where can folks follow you on social media?
Hopefully it was helpful. Yeah. Yeah. If y'all have any more questions about like my limited experience and my advice, feel free to DM me. It's at Crying Bernie. So it's my first and last name just switched. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, Brian, thank you so much for chatting with me. Really enjoyed having you on the Search Engine Journal show. And thanks to everybody who was watching. Tune in for our next episode. And thanks again to our sponsors, Channable and Wix. We'll see you at the next episode. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Amanda. Bye, everyone.